Hit 16, you've never seen a review like this. Weird old games you cannot tame, these things you don't miss. SNES Man is the champion, he is 16-bit. SNES Man is the champion, he is 16-bit.
Hello, my name's SNES Man. Today we're going to talk about Earthbound, a pretty rare Super Nintendo RPG that not everyone knows about today. Earthbound. It was released in 1994 in Japan and 1995 in North America, but it never saw the light of day in Europe. That's really sad because this is a great game. Now, when you think of Super Nintendo RPGs, you probably think of Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger, with their detailed graphics and big medieval stories, but Earthbound doesn't take that approach. This game's set in modern times and doesn't take itself seriously. There's lots of humor. So let me show you my reaction to the game.
This is Earthbound. Yes, I finally got my hands on a copy of this game that my friend lent me. So, let's check out the wonder of it. I can barely bear the excitement!
What a cheery intro for a kid's game. Earthbound. Let's get down to gaming. Alright, let's start up a new game file. Now this is kind of interesting. The game lets you name each character right off the bat. Then it asks you bizarre questions like, favorite homemade food? Well, I'm gonna have to say my favorite food is brains. Brains! Now, what's your favorite thing? Well, that's a no-brainer. My favorite thing is SNES Man reviews. I'm so humble. Whatever you say here will actually show up in the game later, but I don't want to ruin it for you. Okay, enough stalling. Let's play the game. The year is 1990X. Onet, a small town in Eagle Land. Now we slowly zoom over to our protagonist, Ness's house. We cut to Ness sleeping in his bed and creating lines of cartoon Z's. Suddenly, he is woken by meteor showers outside. He decides to go outside and see what's going on. On his way, he finds a bunch of incompetent cops. Don't you know what time it is? Get your butt home, pronto! The dialogue is a breath of fresh air in this era of gaming. Back then, lots of the time the translations were poor and RPGs didn't have great dialogue, but this game just nailed it with an expert translation staff. Most of the lines are really funny. Oh, well, you think the Earthbound dialogue's so good, well, what about Contra 3? They were geniuses! Let's attack aggressively. What? What? It's awesome! Okay, Earthbound's dialogue was way ahead of its time. But now let's move on to the battle system. Here's my first encounter, Spiteful Crow. Now what's really shocking about Earthbound's battle system is that your characters don't show up on screen like in most RPGs. Also, the backgrounds are always flashing abstract colors, not real backgrounds. At first this really disappointed me. The graphics look really stiff and simple. Why did they choose to make the graphics like this? Well, I think it was so you can use your imagination more. There's so much text at the top of the screen that really if they put any more visuals it'd just be distracting. But what about the combat system itself? Well, it's very simple as well. All you can really do is attack or use your psi powers, which work like magic. Luckily, as you keep on going in the game, you get better psi powers and there's more strategy involved. It's actually a very satisfying combat system once you get used to it. Stupid crow, take this! Yes, I won! Okay, enough with the battle system, on to the story. So Ness eventually finds where the meteorite fell and encounters an interdimensional bee who tells him the storyline. An all-powerful evil creature called Gygus is destroying the world, and only you and a couple other scrawny little kids can save the day. That is bizarre, but yet simple. But who are these heroic kids? Let me show you the cast of cosmic defenders. First is Ness, our protagonist of the story. He's probably the strongest character and has good psi powers and good attack, but personality-wise he's a bit boring. Next is Paula, the strong psi user who's often kidnapped in this story. Jeff is a mechanic who relies on items to do damage. Once again, he's a pretty dull character. And the final defender's name is Pooh. What? Pooh? Earthbound, you know how much children enjoy jokes about fecal matter, and you name one of your characters Pooh. Whatever, I'm too mature to be taken in by such childish humor. Pooh. So you start the game with just Ness, but as you go along your adventure, you encounter the other children and form your team. About halfway through the game is when you should get all the characters for your team. Since the storyline is so simple, you don't get a lot of character development with these main characters. They're pretty much just blank protagonists. In fact, their facial expressions don't change once in the whole game. No matter what situation Ness is in, this is his expression. Just a little blank face. Boring. I think the graphics are too simple in this game. The people in the backgrounds are not very detailed or vivid. Luckily, there is one thing that they really did achieve with this graphics, the vastness of the game. There's no overworld map, just walking to everywhere you go, which makes the cities much more lifelike and vivid. This is one of the only RPGs for the time that put a big emphasis on urban adventures. I just wish that there was a run button so you could get around town quicker. But all in all, I was really impressed with how much land there is to navigate and how many people you can talk to. That would take up a lot of space back then in a cartridge. Earthbound feels really big and expansive, and it was a really fresh experience to have all these new ideas, like non-random encounters, a gradual flexible health meter, and best of all, a fresh modern setting with very funny dialogue. There are some ideas and things in Earthbound that are just stunningly creative, like the music. Now, Earthbound isn't my favorite soundtrack, and it certainly didn't win me over at first. But later I heard the huge amount of variety in this game. There's so many different songs and they fit the mood so well. Take a listen to some of these songs. There's all kinds of musical styles and instruments. It's surprising how much they can pull out of the 16-bit console. But the best and most creative music in the entire game is the final battle music. Here's how it works. In the first stage of the battle, it's this 8-bit music, and then it turns into heavy metal. But during Gygas's final stage, the music is terrifying and the imagery is even creepier. For such a cheerful kids game, this ending is very dramatic and frightening. The dialogue in this scene was based on the game's creator's traumatic childhood experiences. That is creepy, but I just have to say, this final battle is amazing, one of the best in video game history, and if you have any doubts about Earthbound, play till the end and you will not be disappointed. Oh, scary. Things to make it better. A bit more detailed graphics, more fleshed out main characters in the story, a few more options in battle to break up the monotony, better item management, less enemies that use status effects like the mushroom, and finally a faster movement speed or a dash to get through the giant game. Don't get me wrong though, this is a brilliant game. It certainly does have some annoying flaws that people don't like to address, but these can't overcome the brilliant parts of the game, like the excellent dialogue, the memorable humor, or the brilliant finale that is really one of the best endings of any game ever. So, after finally beating Earthbound and making my decision, I realize why there's so much hype to this game. There's a lot of magic to it. So, I'll give it a 9 out of 10. But of course, if you're a hardcore Earthbound fan, you can say it's a 10. So if you haven't played Earthbound, check it out. Unfortunately, the cartridges are really rare and expensive, and I wouldn't say it's worth the money to get them. So let's all cross our fingers and hope it comes to the Virtual Console someday, because when you play it on an emulator, it's just not the same. Well, that wraps up today's episode. This has been SNES Man Reviews. I hope you liked the video, and I'll talk to you again sometime soon.